All right, we will go ahead and get this briefing started. Seems like first up is Kevin Cass with the mayor's office, or?
You're stuck with me. Good afternoon. It's so nice to be down here with you. Thank you for making time today. Chairman Bowers, members of the council, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share with you the proposed budget for the fiscal year 21-22. Just providing a broad overview today. Of course, you'll have more detailed briefings with department directors starting tomorrow and throughout this week. But I just want to highlight and call out the fact that we really just spent one of the most challenging and distinct trips around the sun this past year together, and our community came together in remarkable ways in the face of those challenges. And our successes in combating the pandemic were ones we forged together. And we masked up, we practiced physical distancing, we turned to our public health officials for guidance, and we worked hard to protect ourselves and our loved ones and our neighbors. And I'm so proud of this community. I'm also incredibly proud and grateful and inspired to all of our City of Lincoln team who rose to this occasion, who faced our challenges in really determined, courageous, and creative ways. Thank you to all of you for finding a way to continue to meet and allow our residents to continue to make their voices heard on issues of importance to the city. That was incredible what you did in the face of so much uncertainty, so thank you for your perseverance. And our city team, of course, the entire city organization, our employees, they maintained the steady drumbeat of work, delivering vital services that our residents want and need. And you can see those heroic efforts, just some of them, illustrated on this slide, which is the cover of this year's budget. And the work that our city team does is in service to a vision where we are leading Lincoln towards a more successful, secure, and shared future. This vision, this direction for the administration, reflects the belief that city government at its best is helping people to coexist and reach their full human potential. The work that all of us do here at the city is freeing our residents from the worries about the basics of city living so that they can focus on creating opportunities and focus on their futures for their families. And as an organization, the City of Lincoln is uniquely positioned. We are uniquely positioned to protect the public and keep them safe. We're uniquely positioned to provide essentials like safe, clean drinking water, to provide public transportation, to pave the streets on which people travel to and from work and school. And we're uniquely positioned to ensure that our residents have clean air to breathe, green spaces to play in, and access to books and technology that allow them to be lifelong learners that new economic realities really demand. So our vision, first and foremost, involves supporting the fundamental work that our city team does every day to make Lincoln, Nebraska, a place where we all want to live, work, and grow. So to realize this vision, we pursue 5 general outcome areas in the budget. We use our resources to protect the health and safety of all Lincoln families. We use our resources to grow economic opportunity, to grow the good life. We work to create a more equitable and inclusive community, creating a city where everyone feels that they belong. We build a strong and resilient city with infrastructure that supports our needs and that can weather any storm. And we work to foster innovation and excellence in all that we do as an organization. So as we crafted last year's budget, which is our current year, fiscal year budget, our city team had to make some tough decisions and smart choices necessary to continue to deliver services given the uncertainty we faced, not only to deliver services that keep our community safe and healthy, but also to address the immediate needs of the pandemic. And in the face of the extraordinary public health and economic challenges, we met the moment. And now, as we begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel, this year's budget focuses on the future. a future of restoration and renewal. Meeting the moment necessitated increased support for our health team and new precautions for our entire city team. Meeting the moment involved shared sacrifices, cuts that were necessary to balance that budget. Our employees didn't get a COLA. Departments held vacancies to create savings. These are just a couple of examples of the unsustainable steps we took in a remarkable year, steps that should not be repeated. And meeting the moment also involved creative and nimble alterations and adaptations in the way we delivered services. Those included changes in public transit and at Aging Partners, the way they deliver service to our seniors. Our parks and pools had to make adjustments, as did our library's Read Aloud program. In addition to the public health challenges that drove these adaptations that I just described, here's what that moment looked like financially a year ago. Here's what we were facing going into last year's budget. We were looking at pretty dire predictions on what the economic impacts would be to our sales tax revenue. But what has since transpired is that sales tax revenues have rebounded, which is great news. You can see the adopted budget there in the pale orange block. The adjusted forecast for the current fiscal year is the next orange block, and this reflects what then Finance Director Brandon Kaufman presented to the council back in January. Reflects that presentation where he started to talk about how sales tax was looking stronger. And we think that some of that had to do potentially with stimulus checks, but also, sales were strong in retail and building supplies and motor vehicles, just to name a few. So as we look to the upcoming fiscal year budget, the fiscal year 21-22, we have used the actuals that we have seen, trends over the past few years, including our adjusted forecast for the current year, to make an adjustment that we think reflects an increasingly healthy local economy. And the health of this local economy is what supports our budget restoration and important investments in our community. So looking ahead, we are pleased to propose a budget that supports our amazing team of public servants here at the city as they lead and deliver vital services that our residents want and need. Our budget provides resources that are essential to our capacity to deliver on our community's priorities. And the city budget includes multiple funds, as you know, and it's supplemented by a capital budget, and you have all that information in the hard copy version of our budget. And this presentation today is just going to primarily focus on the tax-funded budget, and that's because the focus of the council's work is there. It's the portion of the budget over which policymakers have the most discretion. Most other funds are restricted, like the water fund or the golf fund, and their revenue is dedicated for specific purposes. Again, the city budget is how we support the work that our amazing team does, and this is the big picture that's envisioned for the next fiscal year. The overall proposed fiscal year 21-22 budget, tax-funded budget, is at $224.5 million. One thing I want to highlight is this total represents merely a 2.5% increase over the 2019 budget, the last budget we had before the pandemic, where things were more normal. And just to illustrate the point, here is a graph of previous budgets. You can see the dip in the current fiscal year, 2021, that the budget took, and then the restoration in 21-22. So the important financial takeaway is that following a tough budget year where we did not grow, but we cut the budget, we are restoring our resources to provide the city services that our residents want and need. And we're doing so at a typical pace, as this chart illustrates. This steady growth in our ability to provide services to our residents. Looking at the funding sources for the tax-funded budget, there are multiple funding streams. There are big three, though. There's the three legs of the stool include the sales tax revenue, property tax revenue, and then other revenue, primarily from occupation taxes and other interest earnings, et cetera, that's depicted on this pie chart. We need a healthy economy with all three legs of the stool to do the work that we do, to provide the services for our community. Sales tax, as you can see, comprises the single largest revenue source of our tax-funded budget. We're highly dependent on sales tax revenue to deliver services and infrastructure that ensure public safety and health, economic opportunity, and quality of life here in Lincoln. The second largest source is property tax. And the proposed budget does not increase the property tax levy, despite the fact that relative to other Nebraska cities, ours is one of the lowest property tax rates. So we support our city team's service delivery with very limited resources. And here in Lincoln, the city's share of property tax is relatively small. We receive 16% of the property tax dollars locally. As you can see, Lincoln Public Schools is the big winner, and I know Councilman McGinnis is familiar with this. So with our limited resources, we have to be strategic. We have to make really smart investments that reflect the priorities of our community. So looking again on how we deliver on the priorities of our community, this budget adds 3 firefighters, an assistant fire chief, and an executive secretary. Just as in any organization or business, having people who help operations run smoothly is just as important to a functioning city as are the people whom they support on the front lines. In the police department, we are adding 5 officers, an SRO, and a dispatcher. And I would want to just point out that in addition to a growing city that they support and help with having a safe and healthy community, the benefits here actually go beyond public safety and also support economic revitalization and development. With the return of events, we also need police officers to help staff those events. And I remember clearly the time that I was sitting where you sit now and had a police chief come before me and recommend that we didn't do an event in the rail yard because he didn't think he could staff the city adequately if we devoted resources to that special event. So again, there are multiple reasons why these roles are incredibly important to the effective functioning of our community. And the SRO, I would point out, is a process that we need to start now in anticipation of the opening of the next LPS high school, between recruitment, academy, and then hitting this, being ready to hit the hallways. That is a long process, and now's the time to start getting ready. Part of the safe and healthy city, of course, we all have a nuanced understanding of this now, is making sure that we have adequate funding for those in our public health department and services, and we'll be using state and federal funding supplemented with our local health fund dollars to provide additional supports to the Lancaster County Health Department. We want to make sure that they have the staff they need to continue their response efforts, not only to the pandemic, but to the other important disease prevention work and strategies that they implement on an ongoing basis. That's all still happening in the background right now because of the pandemic, but still very important. So we'll continue to see, public health nurses for the communicable disease program funded, a public health epidemiologist, a PIO for communications purposes, and an environmental health specialist for event review and business consultation. That's been such an important part of our service work this past year. It also adds a dental hygienist. We've seen increased need, and we are an important provider for those who don't have medical homes. And we're using general fund dollars to expand training and evaluate enhancements to our mental health crisis response efforts in cooperation with LPD. So thank you for your support in the last budget for that work. It is continuing to evolve, and we've recently made announcements about partnerships we're developing to evaluate how we do that work even better than we do today. It's worth noting that amongst all these priorities, with public safety being number one for our community, 58% of our tax-funded budget supports public safety expenditures and services. We know that growing the good life, in addition to public safety and making sure that we have a safe, healthy community, it also involves addressing the economic impacts of the pandemic and forging ahead with efforts that support workforce development, the creation of good-paying jobs, and the kind of vibrant city that people will choose to call their home. Everywhere we go and talk to businesses right now, we are hearing the same refrain: workforce, workforce, workforce. So our proposed budget continues our economic recovery and growth initiatives through our contribution, our significant contribution to the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development, or LPED. As you know, we partner with the Chamber to support this important organization that assists with business retention and attraction, workforce development, and support for our entrepreneurs. We also support workers from the city by leading the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act services in our community, or WIOA for short. And that WIOA program provides job search and job training opportunities for adults and dislocated workers and youth. We're going to be expanding on the work of WIOA through a business services representative who helps local businesses meet workforce needs. And we're creating a Ticket to Work program to grow Lincoln's workforce by connecting residents with disabilities to job opportunities. Again, trying to make sure we meet the needs of all of our residents and create economic opportunity for all of our residents. A major aspect of workforce recruitment and retention actually comes down to quality of life in the city, and the quality of life that we can offer people. So recognizing this, the proposed budget takes very seriously our responsibility to safely operate pools, parks, trails, rec centers, libraries, and other facilities that serve the public. It also increases funding for parks maintenance, including playground repairs and mowing. It wasn't so long ago that one of the Taking Charge surveys noted that residents' number one sort of concern with our parks was actually mowing, and we're working to address that in this budget. I want to point out for you all, because I know that you care about our libraries, we are retaining full service levels for the main library and our neighborhood branches. Thank you for helping us do that last year too. Another focus of this budget is building a strong and resilient city, and that involves placing a high priority on strengthening our infrastructure. Streets, streets, streets. By investing in street repair, rehab, and construction, the city supports hundreds of millions of dollars in private investment and development across our community. We also, of course, do that work to provide safe and convenient transportation for people throughout our city, also accomplished through our public transit system. And we are strengthening public transit by funding a transit development plan in this budget and procuring 4 alternative fueled paratransit vehicles. And I would note that of the $57 million that are set aside for street preservation, optimization, and growth, about 12.9 of this represents Lincoln on the Move dollars from the quarter-cent sales tax. Building a strong and resilient community necessitates that we have infrastructure that supports our residents' fundamental needs as our city grows. And this budget makes critical investments in water infrastructure, including meter and main replacements, well field repairs that are ongoing, and preparations to secure a new second source of water supply. It also includes implementing ongoing efforts with the emerald ash borer. And while we think about that partly in terms of quality of life, this is also one of the ways we recognize that trees have an important stormwater management role to play, and they slow down rainwater and allow for more ground filtration. So we have a lot of reasons why that work is important in continuing to have a resilient community. We want to make sure that this resilient and strong community works for everyone, and that leads to our investments in creating a more equitable and inclusive city. Under the umbrella of the One Lincoln Initiative, we are working to ensure that City Hall reflects and can meet the needs of our diverse community, and ensuring that we have improved access to city programs and services. We also continue to partner to support community learning centers, and our budget includes a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional. This was something that we probably would have wanted to add in last year's budget had we had more time before the pandemic hit. We saw Omaha include a position like this in their budget, which came a little bit later. This is something that businesses in the private sector are doing across the board. It's just a really an aspect of running a business or an organization that is vital today, and greater recognition for that across the country. We want to make sure we are keeping up. A fourth outcome objectives, well, this is continuing the equitable inclusive city objective. A key aspect of this work is to improve the quality and availability of affordable housing. As you know, we set a goal as a community of achieving 5,000 new or rehabilitated units of affordable housing by the year 2030. And our planning department continues to support that goal by refining its policies and enhancing development services that will help us grow our overall housing supply and therefore take pressure off the housing market. One of the ways that we are also working to support affordable housing and is to make sure that people stay in it. And we have emergency rental assistance from the federal government that we continue to deploy to our residents. And we continue to ask city staff to help make that happen. Staff from the Urban Development Department, staff from the City Law Department, staff from the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights are all working in collaboration with our nonprofit community to help ensure that we keep people safe, healthy, and housed. Important to our efforts to create a more equitable and inclusive community is ensuring that we have services that adequately support our eldest residents. And this budget enhances Aging Partners service delivery to our growing senior population. And that includes funding for facilitating Aging Partners move to Victory Park and to deliver specialized services for seniors and other at-risk individuals, particularly those who are homebound, through the NeighborLink program. The bullets on this slide could also have easily read, "Move Lincoln to the cloud." No more paper. We really want to continue to improve our organization and be operationally excellent, looking forward to the future and forging solutions to challenges we face. We certainly got a lot of practice at that this past year. The technology investments that we have been making have allowed our city to meet the moment. As the 5th fastest broadband city in the U.S., Lincoln was well positioned to work from home when the pandemic hit. And all of us, I think, saw the importance of technology improvements during the pandemic, whether that was working from home or citizen access to information that was changing so quickly, evolving, more frequently than every day, evolving hour to hour. So our fully electronic vaccine software helped us to lead the state in vaccinations. We were really glad that we had invested in an upgraded website, as well as software that facilitated online collaboration for our city team. We're continuing our tech investments with the goals of greater efficiency and enhanced cybersecurity and communications, and of becoming the smartest city in the country. We're replacing antiquated mainframe-based systems, and that will ensure that the technology backbone of our public safety system is strong and secure. And this budget provides dedicated staff to lead the replacement of these programs, keeping our public safety and financial systems focused on the future. I know we're focused mostly on the tax-funded budget, with some touch on some other investments that will be federally funded, but I also want to call out the fact that the capital improvements program works hand in hand with our city budget to deliver those services that our residents want and need. A few noteworthy CIP investments, although you have a copy of it, and 11 of the 16 LFR fire stations are in various states of disrepair and in need of modernization and significant improvements, not only to address important gender equity and accommodation issues in the stations, but also just to address basic health and safety concerns for the firefighters who live there. Funding for facility maintenance and repair in many previous budgets just hasn't been adequate to address these needs. They're piling up, and we're determined to address them head on with this budget and the CIP. We are also years behind in replacing fleet vehicles that do critical work to preserve our quality of life in the Parks Department and provide needed street rehab and snow removal at LTU. So this CIP will get us back on track with fleet. And we have fleet services replacement funding for Parks and Rec Department equipment, for the LTU's drainage program equipment, and snow equipment. Which takes us back to the final slide. The fleet doesn't drive itself. Local government is people helping people, and everyone on our city team contributed to our successes this past year. These are some of the extraordinary public servants who are behind the work and bring these budgets to life. Lincoln is a city on the rise, and this year's budget restores our ability to keep pace with our steady growth at the same time that it strategically invests in our future as we advance economic opportunity and equity and our community's resilience. With that in mind, I respectfully request your careful consideration of this proposed budget for the upcoming 21-22 fiscal year. Again, directors of our departments are going to be sharing more details in this week, and we encourage your questions and welcome them. And just want to say thank you again for your tremendous service in these extraordinary times. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming down and presenting the budget.
Absolutely.
Are there any comments or questions at this time? Okay, seeing none,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will move into our directors meeting. We'll reconvene in about 5 minutes, and we'll come back in about 5 minutes and we'll do our directors meeting. See you then.